Story 1. The Dream of Pharaoh Akhenaten. Welcome, traveler. Tonight, let us journey to the banks of the ancient Nile, to a time when pharaohs reigned and the sun itself was worshipped. Let your eyes grow heavy as we drift into a peaceful slumber beside the golden sands of Amarna. In the soft hush of early dawn, when the sky turned the color of lapis lazuli, Akhenaten, the pharaoh of Egypt, stirred in his chambers. The linen curtains fluttered gently in the desert breeze. He gazed upon the horizon, where the sun, Aten, began to rise. His palace was quiet, the sandstone halls echoing with the silence of morning. Servants walked with padded feet. The air was cool, and the scent of papyrus and honey drifted in from the garden. As the light touched his face, Akhenaten smiled and whispered a prayer of thanks. He was a ruler unlike others. He had turned away from the many gods of Egypt, worshipping instead the radiant disk of the sun. It brought peace to him, warmth, clarity. And now, in these quiet moments, he walked to the temple he had built, open to the sky, with columns like sunbeams and floors of polished white limestone. A scribe followed at a respectful distance, carrying tablets. But there was no writing needed today. Only silence. The pharaoh placed his hands upon the altar and closed his eyes, letting the warmth of Aten flow through him like water. Peace is not in power, he thought. Peace is in presence. Later that morning, Akhenaten visited the Hall of Offerings. High priests bowed deeply as he entered, the scent of burning myrrh curling upward toward painted ceilings. He moved slowly between altars, his fingers brushing lightly over vessels of wine, fruits, and grains left in reverence to Aten. He raised a gold cup and spoke softly, his voice echoing. O radiant Aten, source of all life, may your light bathe this land in wisdom. After the ceremony, he met with Queen Nefertiti in the Garden of Blossoms. She was reading a scroll beneath the shade of a fig tree. Their conversation was quiet, affectionate, reflections on dreams, on their daughters, on the burdens of kinship. Do you think the people understand our vision? He asked. They may not, she answered, but they feel the sun. That is enough. Later, Akhenaten rested in a cool chamber lined with alabaster. A musician played a soft melody on the lyre. The pharaoh closed his eyes and remembered his youth, a boy under the same sun, dreaming of a kingdom at peace. As the stars emerged, he climbed the palace rooftop. Alone, he sat cross-legged and looked upward. The Milky Way stretched like a silver river above him. He whispered ancient poems to the sky. O Aten, the world turns beneath your gaze. Yet in this stillness, I find eternity. He breathed deeply. Time slowed. The desert night wrapped around him like a linen shroud. He wandered the gardens where lotus flowers floated lazily in pools, and cranes picked their way through reeds. A harpist played nearby, soft notes like drifting petals. The pharaoh's thoughts faded into dreams, dreams of a time when all Egypt would lie still under Aten's gentle gaze, and the only sound would be the wind through palm leaves. As you lie still now, think of those quiet gardens. The hush of stone halls. The gentleness of morning. Let your breath become slow and easy, like the Nile itself, winding toward the horizon. Rest, traveler. The sun has risen, and so too shall you, but not until dawn returns. Story 2, A Night in the Library of Alexandria. Close your eyes and let the scent of parchment and sea salt fill your mind. Tonight, we visit the fabled Library of Alexandria, where ancient wisdom slept behind quiet doors. It is evening. The city is hushed. A lone scholar walks the marble halls of the great library, robes brushing the ground. His name is Calves, and he has waited all day to return to this sanctuary. As he steps through the carved doorway, the silence welcomes him like an old friend. Shelves rise around him, walls of scrolls, thoughts of poets, discoveries of astronomers, secrets of healers. It is said that every book in the world is housed here. He lights a single oil lamp. Its glow dances on the stone. The scent of ink, papyrus, and old cedar fills the air. Outside, the moon reflects on the harbor, but inside, time slows. Calves walks to his favorite alcove, a reading nook beside a mosaic of Apollo, the god of knowledge and light. He unrolls a scroll about the stars and begins to read aloud, softly. Stories of planets, maps of constellations, and the musings of Babylonian astronomers flow like lullabies. He sets the scroll down and opens another, a tale of an Egyptian healer who claimed to cure dreams through song. He reads each passage slowly, absorbing the rhythm of the words. The next scroll tells the story of a forgotten island, where philosophers taught only by asking questions under moonlight. Calves smiles at the thought. The sea breeze creeps in through an open window. He turns now to a thick, dust-covered scroll. It is a collection of myths from lands far to the east, dragons of smoke, mountains that sing, and empires that vanished without a sound. He reads with quiet awe. Then he finds a poem, short and simple. Wisdom sleeps in candlelight, breathes in silence, wakes at night. Calves closes his eyes. He sees constellations forming. He sees a healer humming. He sees the waves of an unknown island, moonlit and still. Each story folds into the next. In a quiet moment, he sets the scroll aside and leans back. He thinks of how many voices are held within this place. Voices long gone, yet still whispering. A final scroll rests at his feet. He lifts it gently and unrolls the fragile parchment. It is a list of dreams recorded by travelers, translated from languages no longer spoken. To remember a dream, it says, is to walk its path again. Calves exhales slowly. He imagines each traveler, each story told in a flicker of firelight, each idea gently passed like a torch. Far below, waves lap against the shore. Far above, stars shimmer like jewels in the sky. The library sleeps. Calves sleeps. And so may you. Let the scrolls roll gently in your mind, unwritten but remembered. And let the hush of knowledge carry you to dreams. Story 3, The Oracle's Whisper. Let the world soften around you as we ascend the sacred slopes of Mount Parnassus. There, in the temple of Apollo at Delphi, the oracle speaks not with thunder, but with whispers. In ancient times, pilgrims came from all corners of the world to seek wisdom. Among them, a quiet acolyte named Thessa carried water each morning from the Castalian spring. Today, she walks slowly, her sandals pressing softly into the earth. The marble temple looms above, not grand, but serene. The scent of laurel leaves lingers in the air. She kneels in silence, listening to the wind weave through the columns. In the sacred chamber, the oracle breathes deep, swaying slightly. Her voice is gentle, melodic, like a lullaby spoken in riddles. Time flows like a river, and all questions return to stillness, she says. Thessa records the words with care, but it is not the answers that soothe her. It is the silence between them. The patient rhythm of waiting. the coolness of the stone beneath her hands. Later that day, she meets a pilgrim from Crete. An old woman, wrapped in a faded blue shawl, her eyes filled with questions. Thessa offers her water and listens as she speaks of dreams she cannot explain. Together, they sit in the garden of olives, sharing figs and moments of stillness. The oracle answered without speaking, the old woman says. Thessa only smiles. That, she has learned, is often the way. She helps another visitor, a young man from Sparta, his voice trembling as he asks about his brother lost to war. Thessa leads him to the temple and places a laurel leaf in his hand. They do not speak again, but when he leaves, his shoulders are lighter. At dusk, Thessa returns to the sacred spring. She dips her hands into the cool water and closes her eyes. She breathes slowly, and her mind drifts into meditation. In the stillness, images begin to form, a white swan on a golden lake, a path through laurel trees lit by stars, a whisper that seems to come from within. Wisdom is not knowing. It is waiting. The vision fades as gently as it came. She opens her eyes. The spring flows as it always has, and yet, something inside her feels different, broader, calmer. As night falls, she lights a single lamp, casting soft shadows on the walls. The stars blink slowly above. The whispers of Apollo are done for the day. She walks the empty halls of the temple once more, touching each column as if greeting an old friend. The wind picks up briefly, stirring the leaves outside. Somewhere in the distance, a lyre plays a single note. Now rest, as the oracle rests. Let your breath fall into rhythm with the wind, and drift into dreams carried by olive leaves and the hush of ancient voices. Story 4, The Emperor's Garden. Tonight, we stroll through the imperial gardens of the Han Dynasty. Let your mind walk slowly among flowering plum trees and koi-filled ponds. The Emperor Liu Che, known in later years for wisdom and reflection, has left behind the palace court. He walks in silence, his silk robes whispering against each other. A servant follows at a distance with a lantern, casting a warm glow. The garden is quiet, a world away from battles, decrees, and diplomacy. Here, there is only moonlight reflecting on still water, the rustle of bamboo, the scent of jasmine. He pauses by a stone bench. How simple life becomes, he muses, when one listens to the stillness. He wanders further, through winding paths lined with orchids and chrysanthemums. In the southern grove, he stops beside a pavilion where an ancient bronze incense burner releases wisps of sandalwood smoke. He breathes deeply, memories rising with the scent. He recalls the lessons of Emperor Gaozu, the dynasty's founder, who spoke of restraint and balance. He remembers Empress Do, his grandmother, who taught him that mercy can be stronger than law. The teachings echo in the stillness of the garden. A gentle breeze ripples across a lotus pond. The emperor kneels to watch koi swim beneath lily pads. One golden fish catches his eye, a reminder of a story he heard as a child, of a carp that leapt a waterfall to become a dragon. He smiles softly. Later, he reaches the moon gate, a circular archway carved with clouds and cranes. He steps through and enters a quieter courtyard shaded by ginkgo trees. He runs his fingers along the stone of a sundial, worn smooth by time. Here, he speaks softly to the stars, as if to old friends. The past is a breeze. The future, a shadow. But this breath, this moment, is mine. He continues to walk until he reaches the bamboo chamber, where scrolls of poetry are kept. He selects one and reads. Within the garden's silent space, the world dissolves without a trace. A petal falls, a moment stays, soft as moonlight, lost in haze. The emperor closes his eyes. The words blend with the sound of wind through bamboo. A lantern flickers. Time softens. He remembers his first night in this garden, many decades ago. The paths were unfamiliar then. The silence overwhelming. But now, the silence is a companion. As you listen now, imagine walking with him. Step by step. Moment by moment. Each breath a falling blossom, each thought a pebble resting in a pond. Let your mind rest in the garden of peace. Let the lantern glow dim. And sleep come gently, like petals floating on water. Story 5. The Silent Watch of the Terracotta Soldier. Beneath the earth in Lebanon, thousands of silent warriors stand guard. Tonight, one awakens, not in movement, but in memory. He has no name, but he remembers. A potter's hand shaped his armor. A soldier's spirit gave him form. He stood for centuries beneath soil and silence. In his dreaming mind, he returns to his earliest days, a youth in the countryside, strong and full of promise. He trained under the sun, his hands blistered from the spear, his breath heavy with determination. He made friends, Wei, who always laughed, even in rain, Jian, quiet but loyal, and Ming, who carved little animals from spare wood. Together, they rose through the ranks, learning the patterns of the battlefield and the poetry of discipline. They pledged their loyalty to the Emperor Qin, not out of fear, but out of hope, that unity would bring peace. In dreams, he marches through forests of crimson leaves, rides past rice paddies glinting in the sun, and stands at the foot of great city walls. The wind carries commands, cheers, and drums. He remembers the final formation, chosen to stand guard even in death. He sees the craftsmen who sculpted his likeness. They did not speak, but the potter placed a hand on his shoulder before casting the clay, a gesture of respect. That warmth stayed with him. And then the long sleep. Soil. Silence. Centuries. Yet in the stillness, visions come. He dreams of a palace lit with lanterns, where dancers move like flame. He walks along a bridge of stars over the yellow river. He sees his old friends gathered by a fire, their faces young and whole again. The emperor appears once more in the great hall. You served with honor, he says. And even in stillness, you watch. The soldier feels peace, not the peace of rest alone, but of fulfillment. Of purpose enduring through time. As dust settles around him, the soldier's memories drift like incense smoke, fading, reforming, quiet. Now let your breath grow steady. Let your body be still as clay. And let your dreams watch over you with gentle silence, just as he does. Story 6, The Star Map of the Maya. We end our journey beneath the southern stars, deep in the rainforests of the Maya. A young boy named Ixen lies on a woven mat beside the fire. His grandmother points to the sky, tracing constellations with her finger. There, she whispers, is the jaguar. And there, the serpent of light. And over there, the hummingbird who guards the dawn. Ixen blinks slowly. What does the serpent guard? He guards the path between dreams and waking, she says. Each time we sleep, he watches us pass between worlds. The fire crackles lower. His grandmother continues, her voice soft and slow, like drifting clouds. That one, she says, pointing to a curved group of stars, is the shell of the turtle that carries time. The great scribes once told stories of how it pulled the calendar across the sky. As Ixen's eyes begin to close, his grandmother stands and gently lifts him. Come, she says, tonight we visit the stones. They walk a quiet path, fireflies flickering like stars fallen to earth. The jungle hums with life, yet feels hushed in reverence. At the end of the trail stands an ancient pyramid, its steps blanketed in moss and moonlight. At the summit is a stone circle, the Star Watch. Elders once came here to read the heavens. Ixen's grandmother lays a blanket on the stone and they sit. Above, the sky stretches endlessly. Each dot, she says, is an ancestor, a god, a guardian. She tells him how the maize god was born from the Pleiades, and how the hero twins chased the Scorpion constellation through the underworld. Her stories paint the sky with wonder. Ixen sees it all. A jaguar leaping from star to star. A serpent winding between moons. A hummingbird slicing through dawn's light. He leans his head on her shoulder. Her voice lowers into a hum, an old melody once sung by priests at equinox. Will the stars remember me? He asks. They already do, she answers. You were written there long before you were born. The jungle trees sway, rocking the night like a cradle. The fireflies dance. The constellations gleam. Let the jungle cradle you now. Let the fire warm your spirit. And let the ancient skies above whisper their final song. Story 7, The Lighthouse Keeper of Pharos. Imagine now the edge of the known world, the harbor of Alexandria, where the lighthouse of Pharos rises like a column of fire above the sea. Tonight, we dream with Ariston, a quiet keeper who lights the way for ships both real and forgotten. Each evening, as twilight brushes the horizon, Ariston climbs the winding stairs of the lighthouse. His lantern swings softly, casting golden arcs along the stone. The air smells of salt and olive oil, and the cries of distant gulls echo like fading memories. His steps are steady, his pace measured. The stone steps have worn smooth beneath his feet over the years, polished by 1,000 ascents. Each one echoes like a heartbeat in the hollow shaft of the great tower. He passes windows that look out onto the endless sea, windows that catch the final rays of the dying sun. Ariston knows the sea better than he knows the streets of Alexandria. He knows the seasons of its moods, the way the wind shifts before a storm, the rhythm of tides that pull and whisper in the dark. The lighthouse has stood here longer than any living man can remember, a beacon of constancy in a world of change. He reaches the summit as the sky dims to violet. Below, fishermen call across the docks, their nets glistening with the day's final catch. Above, the stars prepare their ancient dance. Ariston tends the flame that guides all travelers home. He checks the lens, polishes the bronze mirrors with a cloth passed down from his father, and adds oil to the great fire. Once, long ago, a philosopher visited the lighthouse. He told Ariston that the mirrors were angled not just to reflect light, but to bend the boundary between sky and sea, past and future. Ariston never forgot that. When the beacon is strong, he sits on the balcony. The sea stretches ink black and endless before him. He pulls a worn scroll from his robe, tales of Odysseus, of drifting cities, of stars that never set. He reads aloud to the wind. To sail is to dream. To dream is to return. He imagines distant ships catching the light, traders from Carthage, fishermen from Cyprus, scholars returning with knowledge in their hulls. He wonders if the lighthouse speaks to them the way it does to him, not in words, but in warmth and memory. The night deepens. Ariston boils tea over a small brazier and pours it into a chipped cup. He remembers the smell of his mother's kitchen, how she would hum lullabies about the sea. He closes his eyes and hums one now, letting it drift out with the smoke. Tonight, he dreams of a vessel lost in a storm. In his mind's eye, he sees it bobbing helplessly, sails shredded, men weary. Then the light reaches it, golden and calm. The sailors cheer, adjust their course. The ship turns, sails full, guided by his flame. Safe. Later, he scribbles a few lines into a notebook. The sea holds all things, sorrow, joy, return. The light does not command. It invites. He remembers his father, who once kept the lighthouse before him. A man of silence and stories, who taught him to read the stars and listen to the tides. His father once said, even when no ships come, the flame must burn. Someone, somewhere, needs it. Sometimes, Ariston feels the presence of those who passed before, keepers long gone, walking silently beside him as he tends the fire. Their footsteps blend with his in the stairwell. Their whispers stir the air. On calm nights, he listens. Not to the waves, but to what they conceal, the echo of oars, the ghost song of sailors, the dreams of those who once watched the same stars. In the deepest hour of night, when the flame glows steady and the world feels hushed, he descends and walks slowly to the water's edge. He carries a small lantern in a clay bowl, lights it, and sets it adrift. Guide someone home, he whispers, as he always does. The sea takes the light, rocking it gently, and Ariston watches until it disappears into the dark. He feels no loneliness, only peace, and a quiet presence of the ages. He returns to the tower, curls into a warm blanket beside the hearth, and drifts into sleep, the rhythm of waves lapping like a lullaby. Outside, the lighthouse continues to shine. Now rest, as he rests. Let the rhythm of the waves calm your thoughts. Let the light in your heart glow gently, guiding you across the sea of sleep. Story 8, The Scribe of Nineveh. Long ago in Mesopotamia, nestled between the mighty Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the grand city of Nineveh rose like a jewel of knowledge. Its ziggurats reached skyward, its canals shimmered in the sun, and at its heart stood the palace library, a treasure trove of clay tablets, myths, and memories. In a modest stone chamber within the palace lived Enlil, a young scribe whose daily devotion was to preserve the past. His fingers bore the imprint of his labor, calloused and stained with ink and clay. He was not born into greatness, but into purpose. Every morning, as the first rays pierced through reeds and sandstone, Enlil would whisper a short prayer, let the words endure. By day, he learned beside elder scholars, their beards white with years and their minds sharp with forgotten lore. They spoke of Sargon, of Enkidu, and Gilgamesh, of rain that once drowned the world. Enlil copied line after line, not with haste but reverence. Each cuneiform mark was a spark passed from the ancients to tomorrow. But it was in the deep quiet of night that Enlil truly came alive. By the flicker of oil lamps and the echo of jackals in the distant hills, he would unroll blank tablets and write his own verses, tales inspired by the stars above and the rivers below. He often walked the gardens when he needed peace. The queen's fig trees grew along stone paths lined with obsidian pebbles. The scent of jasmine clung to the air. Here, Enlil would sit beneath an arched gate, stylus in hand, and write. We are rivers with memory. Words in clay. Dreamers pressed into time. He dreamed not of conquest or riches, but of future eyes reading his thoughts. He imagined someone centuries ahead, their world unknown, holding a fragment of his writing, marveling that someone had once knelt in starlit sand and pressed symbols into clay. One night, after completing a retelling of the creation myth, Enlil wandered beyond the garden wall. He walked to the banks of the Tigris. The river spoke in hushed ripples. He scooped a palmful of water and let it trickle through his fingers. We drink from the same stream, he whispered to the night. An owl hooted nearby. The moon floated above the river like a silver boat. Enlil sat and stared at the sky for what felt like hours, his thoughts drifting across time. He began composing a tale, one of a child who rides a comet across the heavens to place the stars in their rightful places. He returned to the library and carved that story through the night. Line by line. Breath by breath. It became his favorite. When dawn came, he did not sleep. He presented it to the head archivist, who read it in silence. Finally, the elder placed a hand on Enlil's shoulder and said, "This one will be remembered." Years passed. Enlil continued his sacred work. He grew older, wiser. One evening, he carved his final line. I am the scribe who remembered the dreamers. He set his stylus down and gazed at the stars, knowing his time was ending. Yet he felt no fear. His words would live in baked clay, hidden from time, waiting to be found. So now, dear dreamer, close your eyes. Let Enlil's words flow through you. Let the soft sound of Nineveh settle gently over your thoughts. And sleep. Story 9, The Moon Ceremony of Teotihuacan. High in the Valley of Mexico, beneath the ancient Pyramid of the Moon, a silver glow bathes the ceremonial plaza. Every full moon, the people of Teotihuacan gather to honor the lunar goddess, the one who watches, reflects, and guides in silence. This is the story of Citlali, a young priestess chosen to lead the ceremony for the first time. Citlali stands in the temple of the Jaguar, her robes fresh with white clay, her hair bound with strands of obsidian. The air smells of copal and earth. Outside, villagers and elders chant softly, their murmurs blending with the wind. She breathes deeply and steps out into the moonlight. The plaza is filled with candles, hundreds, each representing a dream, a prayer, a soul. Children sit on woven mats. Old ones lean on canes carved with constellations. Citlali's heart pounds with reverence, not fear. She makes her way slowly down the temple steps, holding a bowl of sacred water. The people part, a path of silence opening for her. Every step echoes, not just through stone, but through memory. At the altar stone, she places the bowl. Then she kneels. Her hands move in practiced rhythm, fingers dipped in pigment, drawing symbols on her skin: moon, rabbit, wave, feather. Her chant begins, low and slow. She who walks without shadow. She who holds the mirror. She who returns. Around her, others take up the chant. It rises and falls like a tide, like breath. The night sky is vast, the moon full and pale. Lolly closes her eyes. She sees the moon goddess in her mind, cloaked in silver mist, cradling the world. She feels the energy shift around her. The plaza seems to hum. She raises a mirror carved from volcanic glass and catches the moon's reflection. The light dances across the crowd, across the stones, across the altars. It is not blinding, it is soothing, as if it sees each heart and offers comfort. Then, the dance begins. Dozens of young women move in a circle around the altar, their footsteps precise, their movements graceful. Lolly joins them, her arms flowing like wind through reeds. Drums beat like a heartbeat. The crowd sways. There is no need for speech. Midway through the dance, child in the crowd begins to cry, a soft whimper of fear. Lolly turns. She walks to the child, kneels, and places her forehead gently against his. She sings a quiet lullaby, one her mother once sang to her. The boy stills. The people watch, wordless. She returns to the circle. Her steps slower now, more intentional. The dance resumes. Hours pass. Incense coils upward in golden spirals. A priest brings a vessel of moon water, gathered during the last eclipse. Lolly sprinkles it upon the altar, murmuring thanks for clarity, guidance, and dreams. As the ceremony nears its end, she climbs the temple steps once more. From above, she looks over the people, their faces illuminated by soft light. She speaks, her voice steady. We are born from darkness. We are shaped by reflection. We are carried by light. A final chant fills the air. One note. One breath. The candles flicker in harmony. The moon begins its descent. The plaza slowly empties. Lolly stays behind, sitting cross-legged before the altar. She feels changed. Not older, just deeper. As dawn kisses the horizon, she writes her thoughts into a bark paper journal. The moon does not shine to be seen. She shines because she must. Close your eyes now. Let Lolly's voice echo through your dreams. Let the silver light cradle you. Let your own ceremony begin. Story 10, The Mask Maker of Tikal. In the dense jungles of the Piton Basin, where the ruins of Tikal rise like forgotten giants from the canopy, there lived an old artisan named Balaam. His name meant jaguar, and like the sacred animal, he moved with grace, carried a silent wisdom, and kept to the shadows of temples. Balaam was a mask maker, perhaps the last of his kind. His small stone workshop sat at the edge of the Grand Plaza, half swallowed by vines, crowned with orchids. Each morning before the sun crested the trees, he would brew cacao, warm his hands by a fire, and sit at his bench, carving faces from sacred cedar. His masks were not decorations. They were vessels, for memory, for spirits, for dreams. The people of Tikal believed the gods wore masks to walk among mortals. Warriors wore them to become jaguars, priests wore them to speak with stars, and dancers wore them to honor ancestors. Balaam's creations bore turquoise eyes, feathers from quetzals, and mouths carved to speak truths. One morning, as mists curled low and birds called the sun to rise, Balaam began work on a mask unlike any he'd made before. This one was not commissioned. It had come to him in a dream, the face of a young girl, eyes wide with wonder, a brow painted with stardust. He called her Ixcalita, in honor of the moon goddess. He shaped her cheeks from soft wood, inlaid her forehead with crushed jade, and gave her lips a gentle smile, the kind that knows stories but never tells them. As days passed, he worked slowly, intentionally. The jungle moved around him. Howler monkeys called from the trees, rains fell like drums on stone, and the scent of wet earth perfumed the air. Children visited to watch him shape faces from wood, and elders brought offerings of maize and honey. By the second week, Balaam had not spoken a word aloud. He listened instead to dreams. He dreamed of the girl in the mask running through a golden field, laughing. He dreamed of her placing the mask on an old man who suddenly remembered his childhood. He dreamed of her standing at the temple, lifting the mask toward the stars, and hearing the sky sing back. When the mask was complete, Balaam wrapped it in embroidered cloth and carried it to the temple of inscriptions. There, he laid it gently on the central altar and whispered, "May your face be seen by time." That night, the city held a festival. Drums thundered. Dancers wore masks, jaguars, serpents, owls. Balaam sat in shadow and watched. At midnight, a girl, no older than 10, approached the altar. She reached out and touched the cloth. A priest nodded. The girl placed the mask on her face. The crowd fell silent. And in that hush, the wind shifted. Balaam felt it first, the air vibrating softly, as if remembering a song. The girl began to dance, and it was not a child's dance. It was old. Deep. As though her feet knew stories no one had told her. Her hands traced constellations. Her steps marked seasons. The people watched in reverent awe. No one spoke. At dawn, she removed the mask and bowed. The elders declared it a divine moment. They asked Balaam what spirit he had summoned. He only smiled. "Not a spirit," he said. "A memory." He returned to his workshop and began a new mask, not of a god or a warrior, but of a tree. One that remembers rain. And so he continued, carving the soul of the city, one face at a time. Now, close your eyes. Let the scent of cedar and rain wrap around you. Let the mask speak without words. Let Balaam shape your dreams. Story 11. The Last Song of Atlantis. Before the sea swallowed its marble towers, Atlantis sang. It was a city of harmony, where scholars, poets, and builders worked side by side, and music threaded through daily life like the tide. From golden domes to quiet harbors, the Atlanteans believed that to live was to create, and to create was to echo the divine. Among them was Celira, a young chorister of the Temple of Tides. Her voice was said to reflect the ocean itself, gentle, deep, and ever-moving. Each morning, she would bathe in a sunlit pool fed by a spring, then ascend the spiral stairs of the singing tower to rehearse with the choir. There, high above the city, the songs of Atlantis were offered to the wind. But this morning is different. The birds do not sing. The waves crash harder. And a silence, not of peace, but of tension, grips the air. Celira kneels before the high priest, who hands her a shell-shaped pendant. Tonight, he says, you must sing alone. That evening, the city gathers. The stars burn bright. The people line the sea walls, carrying lanterns made from crystal and pearl. Celira steps forward, barefoot, her white robe rippling in the salty wind. She closes her eyes and begins. Her song rises, soft as foam, then swelling. It tells of beginnings, of gods who shaped islands from dreams, of waves that remember. It sings of joy and sorrow, of laughter shared beneath coral arches, of love whispered between sea glass windows. As she sings, the sea listens. Towers tremble. Fish leap in silver arcs. The water glows faintly, as though singing back. The people do not speak. They weep, quietly, holding hands. Then the earth sighs, deep, ancient. The city shudders. Somewhere, stone cracks. Salira sings louder. She sings to calm, to guide, to hold the memory. She walks to the edge of the great pier. The waves touch her feet. Her voice does not waver. She sings of the children, the artisans, the healers. She sings of everything Atlantis was, and still is, in this final breath. The sea rises. As water laps the steps, she clutches the pendant. One last note escapes her lips, long, haunting, eternal. Then, silence. The towers fall. The light dims. And the sea claims its secret. But not forever. Far below, in the deep, Salira's voice still hums. A current carries it. Whales turn their heads. Shells hum in tune. Somewhere, a diver hears a melody through the waves and dreams of a city that once sang. Now, close your eyes. Let the ocean cradle you. Let Salira's voice guide you across the waters of sleep. Story 12, The Timekeeper of Babylon. In the heart of ancient Babylon, where hanging gardens swayed in the breeze and ziggurats touched the heavens, lived an old man named Zarmin. He was the city's timekeeper, a quiet guardian of hours, stars, and sacred rhythms. Zarmin did not rule time, he listened to it. Each morning, he greeted the rising sun with palms open and breath still. Each night, he studied the constellations carved into clay charts, matching their slow drift across the sky with the turning of water clocks below. His chamber stood beside the grand temple of Marduk. Vines crept up the brick walls, birds nested in stone ledges. Inside, rows of timepieces marked different measures, clepsydras dripping with rhythmic certainty, sundials etched with prayers, and pendulums made from polished lapis. He kept no apprentices. But each evening, children would gather outside his courtyard, sitting cross-legged as he told them stories, not of kings or wars, but of moments. The second a lotus opened at dawn. The breath before a dancer leapt. The silence between raindrops on clay. Time, Zarmin would say, is not the ticking. It is the space between. One night, as a rare conjunction neared, the meeting of Venus and Jupiter, Zarmin could feel the energy in the air. He spent the day preparing the observation platform, sweeping dust from the stone tiles, arranging bowls of sacred oil, and trimming the flame that burned beside the calendar wall. At twilight, he climbed the high platform. The city lay golden below, lanterns flickering, laughter drifting from courtyards. He took out his old stylus and tablet, tracing planetary positions in careful strokes. But he did not just record. He meditated. Zarmin stood at the edge and opened his arms to the sky. The breeze wrapped around him like a shawl of memory. He recited, "The moment is a jewel. Time, its setting. Be still, and you shall see it gleam." Hours passed. Stars brightened. The gods began their slow parade across the heavens. He poured oil into the time basin and watched as a tiny flame floated in the center, anchored by a petal. The flame flickered in perfect rhythm to the dripping clepsydra. He breathed with it. Suddenly, clouds parted. Venus and Jupiter touched. He smiled. The children down below gasped. Zarmin took a long breath and closed his eyes. In that moment, he saw the entire city, people sleeping, candles flickering, lovers whispering. He felt every heartbeat, every dream. He whispered, "This is eternity, pressed into now." And then, he slept. Right there, on the warm stone. Not from weariness, but as a gift. He dreamt of sand flowing upward. Of time folding like silk. Of a future where someone, somewhere, still looks up and wonders about the stars. Now let your thoughts slow. Let your breath fall into rhythm with the drop of water, the swing of the pendulum. Let Zarmin's stillness guide you through the gates of sleep. Story 13, The Astronomer of Chichén Itzá. In the emerald embrace of the Yucatan jungle, where vines draped ancient ruins like necklaces of time, rose the sacred city of Chichén Itzá. Its limestone pyramids shimmered white beneath the tropical sun, their steps worn smooth by generations of priests, kings, and seekers. But none walked them with more purpose than Itzá, the astronomer. Itzá was not born into grandeur. Her family were cacao farmers, humble and kind. Yet even as a child, she turned her eyes to the heavens more than the fields. Her first memory was of a meteor streaking through a black sky, lighting the palm fronds like day. From that night forward, she felt tethered to the stars. At the age of 7, she was chosen by the temple priests, not for her birth, but for her gift, a perfect memory and the uncanny ability to sense when celestial bodies would move. She could not explain it, she simply knew. By 10, she could draw the lunar cycles from memory. By 13, she could anticipate eclipses. At 15, she was entrusted with a chamber in the observatorio, the round tower the Maya used to study the sky. Each day began before dawn. As the birds began their morning song, Itzá would sit cross-legged in the temple garden, eyes closed, listening to the rustle of fronds, the flow of wind, the slow roll of silence before sunrise. The sky speaks, her mentor had told her. But only when the earth is quiet. She would then climb the great temple of Kukulkan, 91 steps exactly, to its summit. There, she marked the shadows as the sun rose, how they stretched, shortened, and danced upon the stones. On equinox days, she watched the great feathered serpent, the shadow illusion cast on the temple's side, slither down to earth. Itzá was not just a watcher of stars. She was a weaver of time. In the sacred codices, she saw patterns. She began to map the orbits of Venus and Mars not just in numbers, but in feelings, warmth, tension, silence, movement. She associated emotions with constellations. Her codex, the Nakain, the House of the Sun, was unlike any other. It included glyphs and star paths, yes, but also poetry. When Venus hides, she wrote, asterisk, we do not lose her. She retreats to dream. By her mid-20s, Itzá had become the high astronomer, a rare honor for someone so young. But with the title came dreams. And the dreams began to disturb her. In them, she saw the stars rearranging. Not falling, but shifting. The patterns she had known her whole life became jumbled, spiraling inward. The sun turned red. The serpent's shadow coiled too tightly. And from the earth came a whisper. Time is folding. She began to search the codices for answers. The sacred Tzolk'in calendar, the 260-day cycle, spoke of eras, of long counts and cosmic ages. The priests said each era had a beginning and an end. But Itzá began to wonder, what if it was not an end, but a crossing? Her research consumed her. She slept beside the observatory, ate only when reminded. And all the while, the stars above began to subtly shift. Then came the day of dual shadows, an event she predicted but feared. On that day, at high noon, not one shadow appeared on the temple, but two, cast at opposite angles. The people gathered, confused. Elders murmured. And Itzá, standing atop the pyramid, felt her heart slow. A tear in time, she thought. A door. That night, she climbed alone. She carried only a bowl of cacao, a jade pendant, and her codex. She did not chant. She did not pray. She watched. And the sky opened. From the darkness bloomed a second sky, mirrored and inverted. Constellations reversed. Venus pulsed like a heartbeat. A sound like a breath through stone filled her ears. The stars blinked, once, twice, and then everything stilled. Itzá saw a vision. She stood in a distant world, not above, but beside, where children wore bracelets of stars, and pyramids floated. A voice, calm and vast, whispered, "The serpent does not crawl, it loops. And you, daughter of shadow, are the loop." Asterisk. She awoke at dawn, the codex glowing faintly. From that day forward, Itzá changed. She spoke slowly, as if measuring every word. She began to train others, not just in astronomy, but in listening. "Do not look at stars," she told her pupils. "Feel them fall through you." She wrote one final passage. "Time is not what moves. We are. The stars stay. We dance around their stillness, calling it a journey." Asterisk. Then one night, Itzá walked into the jungle. Some say she followed Venus. Others claim she became a beam of light. Only her staff was found, planted in the earth, pointing toward a single star. Now, dear dreamer, lie still. Let your thoughts slow like a setting sun. Let the stars above you swirl in silence. Breathe with the jungle, with the sky, with time itself. You, too, are a traveler through the heavens. Let Itzá guide your way. Story 14, The Oracle of Delphi's Final Night. The air was heavy on Mount Parnassus, thick with laurel smoke and the slow hush of twilight. Stone still held the sun's warmth, but a cold wind threaded through the olive trees like a whisper from the gods. The temple of Apollo stood quiet and solemn, its white columns fading in the last golden light. All was still, as if the mountain itself held its breath. Pythia, the oracle of Delphi, sat in silence in the upper chamber, her eyes closed, her breath steady. She had been the voice of Apollo for more than 50 years. Her hands, once nimble, were now lined with time. Her hair, once as dark as the cave shadows, had turned silver, braided now with threads of gold and dried bay leaves. Tonight would be her final prophecy. She had known for months. It came to her in dreams, not visions like those she gave to others, but slow tides of knowing. In those dreams, the tripod burned without fire. The sacred spring ran dry. And a voice, ancient and layered, said only, "You are the last." Now, alone in the temple, Pythia stood. Her white robes rustled as she moved slowly through the corridor, her bare feet pressing against stone worn smooth by generations of priestesses. She carried only a clay lamp, the flame dancing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She descended into the adyton, the sacred chamber beneath the temple where vapors rose from the earth's breath, the place where the divine and mortal met. The cavern walls glistened with moisture. The smell of sulfur and ash clung to the stones. She approached the tripod, the seat of her visions. It had been hers since she was barely 20, when Apollo first chose her, a farmer's daughter, to speak for the god of light, poetry, and truth. The priests had doubted her, but she had silenced them with her first prophecy, the king's war, the flood, the sickness that would follow. Every word came true. From that moment, her voice became law. Now, she knelt. She set the lamp beside her, placed a sprig of laurel across her knees, and breathed in the steam that rose from the sacred fissure. The visions came immediately. Not in flashes, but in waves. She saw cities lit by fireless lanterns. People speaking into glowing stones. Metal birds in the sky. Seas rising. Forests vanishing. Yet also, healing, music, children dancing in painted light. She saw temples, ruins, her own name etched in books of scholars who no longer worshipped gods but still whispered of Delphi in wonder. Then came the mountain itself, erupting not with lava, but with silence. The temple cracked. Columns fell. And the voice returned, all things pass, even the voices of gods. Pythia opened her eyes. For a long time, she sat motionless, hands resting on her knees. Then, she rose, slowly, steadily, and made her way back up the passage. The night was deeper now. Stars shimmered above the olive trees. The priests waited in the courtyard, their faces solemn. The last seeker stood apart, a young man, no more than 18, wearing worn sandals and a red sash. He had walked from the farthest island to ask his question. Pythia looked at him, and without asking, she knew. "Will there be peace?" he asked softly. She did not answer at once. She walked past him to the sacred spring and dipped her hands into its waters. Then she turned, eyes reflecting the moonlight. "There will be forgetting," she said. "And in forgetting, remembrance. There will be silence, and in silence, music. There will be peace, not of stillness, but of motion. You must not fear what falls apart. You must tend what grows." The boy blinked, unsure. But something in her voice, low and certain, calmed him. He bowed, thanked her, and stepped back. The priest said nothing. Pythia walked to the base of the temple steps. She gazed once more at the stars. Then she removed the laurel crown from her hair and placed it gently on the altar. She lay down on the first step, folding her hands across her chest. When the morning came, the priests found her still and quiet. Her face was peaceful. The wind stirred the hem of her robes, lifting it like breath. Her staff was gone, though no one had seen it taken. From that day forward, no new oracle was named. The priests left the temple open. Travelers came and went, sitting on the steps, listening to the wind. Some swore they heard whispers, not words, but feelings. Warmth. Clarity. Stillness. Many years later, an earthquake broke the temple's roof. Moss grew over the stones. The statues fell. But the spring never stopped flowing. And still, on moonlit nights, some say a soft chant rises from the ground, not in Greek, but in something older, deeper. A lullaby of prophecy. Now, close your eyes. Let the mountain quiet your thoughts. Let the laurel's breath soothe your chest. You are not lost. You are on the path. The oracle has spoken. Story 15, The Weaver of the Indus. Long before the world mapped its empires and named its borders, there thrived a civilization along the gentle curves of the Indus River. The people of Mohenjo-daro built with fire-baked brick, measured streets with care, and bathed in silence beneath the stars. They wrote in signs no one has yet deciphered. They spoke through pattern, water, and stone. Among them lived a woman named Amaya. She was a weaver, not of words or politics, but of threads. Her home was small and clean, a sunlit courtyard shaded by a tamarind tree. There, the rhythmic clack of her loom echoed softly from dawn to dusk. Her neighbors called her the listener, for she often stared into the river for hours before threading even a single needle. Amaya believed the river spoke. Every morning she rose before the sun, walked barefoot to the edge of the water, and dipped her hands into its coolness. She would whisper to it, not questions, but thanks. Then she would scoop up a bit of silt, rich and dark, and mix it into her dye vats. Her colors were always slightly different from anyone else's, more alive, somehow, more aware. Her loom was sacred. Its frame carved from neem wood, its threads stretched tight like breath between dreaming and waking. She wove patterns that no one else had seen, spirals that mimicked the way vines curled, grids that mirrored the city's streets, waves that matched the flow of the monsoon. Each tapestry she made told a story, though no one could read it the same way twice. One cloth told of the wind's migration, moving from village to village, carrying news on its back. Another showed the stars mirrored in rain puddles. Children saw animals in the threads, elders saw prayers. Travelers took them home, unsure whether they had bought art or memory. Amaya never signed her work. She said it belonged to the river. One year, the monsoon came late. Crops withered. The river narrowed. And something strange happened. The patterns in Amaya's cloth began to change. No longer flowing and soft, they turned sharp, edged, angular. Triangles nested within triangles. Dots scattered like lost footsteps. People whispered that her work was becoming a warning. Amaya didn't deny it. At night, she dreamed of water pulling away. Of cracked clay. Of silence where birds once sang. In her dreams, the river asked her to remember it. So she began a new piece. It was unlike anything she had made before, vast, layered, almost too large for her loom. She wove it not with colored thread alone, but with reeds, shells, and bits of sun-bleached driftwood. She worked for weeks, barely eating, speaking only to the river. Children brought her food. The elders lit lanterns near her loom. They didn't understand, but they respected the silence. The final tapestry shimmered like heat. It showed a city, surrounded by waves, lifting like a boat. It showed figures walking east, toward rising suns. It showed the river coiling like a serpent, then sleeping. She wrapped it in waxed linen and sealed it inside a clay jar. Then, in the dead of night, she walked to the great bath, the sacred pool at the center of the city, and sank the jar to the bottom. No splash. No farewell. The next day, she was gone. Some say she walked upriver, looking for the source. Others say she became part of the current. Her home stood empty, loom silent, the tamarind tree shedding leaves like prayers. Seasons passed. The river rose again, then receded. The city thinned. Eventually, the people left, their clay bricks crumbling into the earth. Thousands of years later, when the ruins were rediscovered by archaeologists, they found the jar. They opened it carefully. Inside was the tapestry, perfectly preserved, untouched by time. No one could read it. But when they unrolled it, the room grew quiet. A breeze stirred. And someone, a young woman, began to cry, though she did not know why. Now, close your eyes. Listen to the rhythm of your own breath, in, out, like warp and weft. You, too, are part of a larger pattern. One being woven even now. Let Amaya's river carry you,